The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Meridian Cafe in downtown Seattle, casting golden streaks across marble tables where the city's elite conducted their daily rituals. Madison Sterling adjusted her Hermes scarf and checked her Cartier watch. 8:47 a.m., perfectly on schedule. Her manicured fingers wrapped around a porcelain cup containing her usual oat milk cortado with a dash of vanilla, exactly as her personal assistant had pre-ordered. "Madison, darling, you simply must see these photos from the Hamptons," chirped her best friend Scarlett Vanderberg, sliding into the velvet chair across from her. Scarlett's platinum blonde hair caught the light as she scrolled through her phone, showing images of sprawling estates and yacht parties. Madison's emerald eyes sparkled with practiced interest. "Oh, that's lovely. Though I still think the vineyard has better ... atmosphere." She spoke with the refined confidence of someone who had never questioned whether she belonged in spaces like this. Never wondered if others might be watching her, judging her right to be there. "Absolutely," Scarlett agreed, her voice carrying that particular tone of superiority that wealthy women perfected. "Speaking of which, did you hear about the new scholarship program they're pushing at the university? Something about diversity initiatives. Honestly, if people would just work harder instead of expecting handouts." Madison nodded absently, her attention already drifting to her phone, where notifications from her trust fund manager awaited. The comment about scholarships floated past her consciousness. Like background noise, just another topic that didn't require her genuine consideration. After all, she'd earned her position through her family's generations of success, hadn't she? The cafe hummed with the comfortable sounds of privilege. Soft conversations about European vacations, stock portfolios, and charity galas that served more as social networking than genuine philanthropy. Hello, my Stop Racism family. Thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive deeper into the story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Let us know in the comments. We love reading them, and trust me, your words motivate us to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means the world to us, and it drives us to create even more meaningful content for you. So don't forget to comment, share, and keep the positivity flowing. Later that afternoon, Madison sat in the crystal chandelier dining room of the Sterling family estate in Bellevue, where 3 generations of wealth had accumulated like layers of sediment. Her mother, Victoria Sterling, delicately cut her salmon while discussing the family's charitable foundation with Madison's older brother, Preston. "The Johnson Foundation is making waves again," Victoria said, her voice carrying decades of social conditioning. "They're funding these urban youth programs. I suppose it's admirable, though I do wonder about the sustainability of such initiatives." Preston, impeccably dressed in his law firm's standard-issue navy suit, nodded thoughtfully. "The statistics are quite clear, Mother. Most of these programs see minimal long-term success rates. It's simply a matter of cultural priorities and work ethic." Madison found herself internally agreeing. These were the truths she'd absorbed since childhood, that success came from dedication, that their family's prosperity was earned through generations of hard work and smart decisions. It seemed logical that those who hadn't achieved similar success simply hadn't applied themselves with the same rigor. "I've been thinking about expanding our scholarship program," Madison offered, genuinely believing she was being progressive. "But perhaps we should focus on rural communities, areas where there's less ... complication." Victoria smiled approvingly. "Such wisdom, darling. It's important to help where help can be most effective." The conversation continued over dessert, each family member reinforcing the other's perspectives. Madison felt secure in her worldview, surrounded by people who shared her experiences and validated her assumptions. The comfortable echo chamber of privilege made it easy to believe that their success was purely meritocratic, that systemic barriers were simply excuses for individual failings. Later, alone in her room, Madison gazed out at the manicured gardens and felt a deep satisfaction with her life's trajectory. She had attended the right schools, maintained the right friendships, and would soon take over significant portions of the family business. Her future seemed as carefully planned and predictable as the geometric patterns in their hedge maze below. The evening news played softly in the background, but Madison barely registered the stories about economic inequality or social justice movements. Such topics felt distant from her reality, theoretical problems that existed in a world she rarely encountered. The next morning, at Starbucks on Pine Street, Madison stood in line behind a young black woman struggling to count quarters and dimes. For her coffee, the barista, clearly impatient during the morning rush, tapped his fingers on the counter while other customers shifted restlessly. Could you hold this for me, Ladau?" the woman asked quietly, extending a crumpled $5 bill. "I think I have the right change, but I'm not sure. ... Madison watched as the woman's hands trembled slightly, her worn sneakers and faded jeans a stark contrast to the luxury brands surrounding them. Without thinking, Madison stepped forward. "Here," she said, her voice carrying what she believed was kindness but came across as condescending. "Let me help you out." She placed a 20 on the counter with the flourish of someone accustomed to solving problems with money. "This should cover it." The woman's eyes widened not with gratitude, but with something Madison couldn't quite identify. I can pay for my own coffee. Thank you." "Of course you can," Madison replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I just thought, well, it's no trouble at all. Consider it a random act of kindness." The barista quickly processed the transaction, eager to move the line along. Madison felt a warm glow of satisfaction she'd helped someone less fortunate, demonstrated the generosity that came with her position in society. It never occurred to her that her help might be perceived as humiliating or that her assumptions about the woman's financial situation were based on appearance rather than reality. As Madison collected her elaborate drink, Oder, venti caramel macchiato with extra foam and oat milk, she noticed the woman sitting alone at a corner table, staring at her phone with an expression of quiet dignity that made Madison momentarily uncomfortable. Behind her cheered a man's voice, deep and quietly critical. That was unnecessary. But when Madison turned to look, she saw only a tall black man in an expensive suit, his eyes fixed on the woman in the corner with what appeared to be respectful concern. The moment passed quickly, but something about his presence lingered in Madison's mind as she hurried to her car. 3 days later, Madison found herself in the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel, waiting for her business associate to arrive for their lunch meeting. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and the atmosphere hummed with the quiet efficiency of luxury service. She was scrolling through her phone when she heard a familiar voice, the same deep tone from the coffee shop. Looking up, she saw the tall black man from Starbucks standing near the concierge desk, but now she could see him more clearly. His charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, his posture confident, and his presence commanded attention without demanding it. "Mr. Washington," the concierge said respectfully, "your usual suite is ready, and the car will be available whenever you need it." Madison felt a flutter of confusion. This was clearly not what she had expected. As she observed him, she noticed the way hotel staff treated him with the same deference they showed to her family. Her mental categories began to shift uncomfortably. Their eyes met across the lobby, and he walked over with purposeful strides. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying an unusual nervousness that contrasted with his confident appearance. "I know, this sounds absolutely insane, but I have a rather unusual request." Madison raised an eyebrow, her guard immediately up. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "Not exactly." "Marcus Washington." He extended his hand, which she shook hesitantly. "I saw you at the coffee shop earlier this week. I was hoping. Well, this is going to sound completely crazy, but could you be my girlfriend for 3 hours? The request hit Madison like a physical blow. Her first instinct was indignation. Who did he think he was? But something in his expression stopped her from immediately walking away. There was no arrogance, no presumption, just genuine desperation. "I'm sorry, what?" she managed to say. "My grandmother is visiting from Atlanta, and she's 93 and has been asking about my love life for years. I may have exaggerated my dating situation to make her happy, And now she's here, expecting to meet my girlfriend. I know how this sounds, but I'm willing to pay you for your time." Madison's worldview tilted. The casual mention of payment, the expensive suit, the hotel staff's deference, nothing fit her assumptions about this man or his place in the world. "You want to pay me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "I know it's unconventional, but I'm desperate. My grandmother doesn't have much time left, and I just want her to be happy." That evening, Madison sat in her penthouse apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, Marcus Washington's business card resting on her marble coffee table. The Seattle skyline glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the bizarre encounter at the Four Seasons. She'd left the hotel without giving him an answer, her thoughts spinning with questions that challenged everything she thought she knew about social hierarchy and assumptions. The way the staff had treated him, the quality of his clothing, the genuine emotion in his voice when he spoke about his grandmother. None of it aligned with her preconceptions. Her phone buzzed with a text from Scarlett. "Dinner tomorrow. The new French place in Belltown." Madison stared at the message, remembering their conversation from earlier in the week about scholarships and urban youth programs. For the first time, she found herself wondering about the stories behind the statistics, the individual lives that existed beyond her family's comfortable generalizations. She picked up Marcus's card and turned it over in her fingers. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind her own family's business used. Washington Holdings LLC was embossed in gold lettering with an address in one of Seattle's most prestigious business districts. "Washington Holdings," she murmured to herself, then reached for her laptop. A quick search revealed that Marcus Washington was the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar technology company specializing in educational software. His company had been featured in Forbes, TechCrunch, and The Wall Street Journal. His net worth was estimated to be over $50 million. Madison closed the laptop and leaned back against her Italian leather sofa, feeling something she rarely experienced: genuine confusion about her own judgment. Here was a man who, by every measure her family valued, was successful, wealthy, and accomplished. Yet her first instinct had been to categorize him as somehow lesser, somehow different from her world. The doubt that crept in felt unfamiliar and uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. The next morning, Madison found herself walking past the coffee shop on Pine Street, though she couldn't quite admit to herself that she was hoping to see Marcus again. Through the window, she spotted him at the same corner table where the woman had sat days before. But he wasn't alone. A teenage boy sat across from him, textbooks spread across the table, his expression intense with concentration. Madison watched as Marcus patiently explained something, pointing to pages and nodding encouragingly. The boy's worn backpack and secondhand clothes suggested he wasn't from the same economic background as the other customers. But Marcus treated him with the same respect he'd shown the hotel staff. "That's awesome, Mr. Washington," the boy said, loud enough for Madison to hear through the glass. "I never understood calculus until you explained it like that." "You're brilliant, Jerome," Marcus replied, his voice warm with genuine pride. "Just needed someone to show you the patterns differently. My grandmother always said everyone's brain works like a different kind of computer. Same result, different programming." Madison watched as Marcus pulled out his wallet and discreetly slid a gift card across the table. "For lunch this week," he said simply. "Can't learn on an empty stomach." The boy's eyes lit up with gratitude that was both touching and painful to witness. "Thank you, sir. I promise I'll keep my grades up." "I know you will. And Jerome, remember? What we talked about, you belong in that AP class, regardless of what anyone else thinks." After the boy left, Marcus sat alone for a moment, typing on his phone. Madison couldn't help but notice the way other customers looked at him, some with curiosity, others with a subtle wariness that she was beginning to recognize as unconscious bias. When Marcus finally stood to leave, he caught sight of Madison. Through the window, their eyes met, and he walked outside. "Reconsidering my crazy request?" he asked with a self-deprecating smile. Madison found herself nodding before she could stop herself. "Tell me more about your grandmother. You're going to do what?" Scarlett's voice carried across the exclusive dining room of the Metropolitan Grill, causing several heads to turn. Madison had just finished explaining her decision to help Marcus. Though she'd carefully omitted the financial details of his background, it's just 3 hours, Scarlett. His grandmother is elderly, and he wants to make her happy. Madison, darling, you can't be serious. Scarlett leaned forward, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. You don't know anything about this man? What if he's dangerous? Madison felt a familiar discomfort, recognizing the coded language her social circle used when discussing race. He's not dangerous, Scarlett. He's actually quite successful. That's what they all say. Preston interjected, joining their table with his usual authoritative presence. Madison, I've heard about these kinds of scams. They target wealthy women with sob stories and fake emergencies. It's not a scam, Preston. I've done my research. Research. Her brother's tone carried the condescension he'd perfected during law school. Madison, you're being naive. People like that don't just approach women like you with innocent requests. There's always an agenda. The phrase people like that hung in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle. Madison felt her chest tighten as she recognized the same language patterns she'd used herself just days before. What do you mean, people like that? She asked quietly. Preston exchanged a look with Scarlett before answering. Come on, Madison. We all know what I mean. You're from a good family. You have a reputation to maintain. What will people think? If they see you with ... him. I don't care what people think. Well, you should, Scarlett said firmly. Your family's name means something in this city. You can't just associate with random people because you feel sorry for them. Madison looked around the restaurant, noting for the first time how homogeneous the clientele was, how comfortable everyone seemed in their shared assumptions. The walls felt like they were closing in, and she realized that her social circles' protection came with invisible chains. Maybe it's time I cared about something else, she said quietly. The next evening, Madison found herself in an upscale coffee shop in Capitol Hill, sitting across from Marcus Washington. The afternoon crowd was diverse, creative, and refreshingly different from her usual haunts. She'd chosen this place deliberately, wanting to have their conversation somewhere outside her comfort zone. I have to ask, Madison said, stirring her latte nervously. Why me? You could afford to hire an actress, or ask a friend. Or, Marcus was quiet for a moment, his fingers wrapped around his coffee cup. Honestly, because you seem real. Not real in the way that means authentic. Real in the way that means you haven't had to think about how you move through the world. I don't understand. When I saw you at the coffee shop, helping that woman, your intentions were good, but you had no idea how that felt for her. You've never been in a situation where someone's kindness felt like pity. Madison felt her cheeks flush. I was trying to help. I know. That's what I mean about real. You genuinely believed you were being helpful. And you've probably never been in a situation where someone made assumptions about your ability to pay for your own coffee. The words stung because they were true. Madison had never questioned her right to belong in any space. Never wondered if her presence made others uncomfortable. Never had to prove her worth or defend her achievements. Tell me about your grandmother, she said, changing the subject. Marcus's expression softened immediately. Her name is Ruby. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She worked 3 jobs to put me through school. Never complained, never made me feel like a burden. His voice grew thick with emotion. She's the strongest person I know, and she's been asking about my love life for years. I kept telling her I was too busy with work, but last month she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Madison felt something shift in her chest. I'm so sorry. I just want her to believe I'm happy, that all her sacrifices were worth it. Oh. For the first time in days, Madison's decision felt absolutely clear. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments if you're loving it. Type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. The meeting with Ruby Washington was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at Marcus's penthouse apartment in the Columbia Center. Madison had spent the morning getting ready, choosing her outfit carefully elegant but not ostentatious, warm but not overly casual. She wanted to make a good impression on the woman who had raised such a remarkable man. When she arrived at the 38th floor, Madison was struck by the apartment's understated luxury. The space was beautifully appointed, but felt lived in. Comfortable. Photos covered the mantel Marcus as a child with a dignified black woman. Graduation, pictures, business awards, family gatherings. "You must be Madison," came a voice from the kitchen. Ruby Washington appeared in the doorway, and Madison was immediately struck by her presence. Despite being in her 90s and visibly frail, Ruby carried herself with unmistakable dignity. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her smile warm but assessing. "Mrs. Washington, it's such a pleasure to meet you," Madison said, extending her hand. "Oh, honey, come here." Ruby pulled Madison into a gentle hug that smelled of vanilla and wisdom. "Marcus has told me so much about you, though I suspect there's more to this story than either of you are letting on." Madison felt her carefully rehearsed story crumble under Ruby's knowing gaze. This woman had raised Marcus, had worked 3 jobs, and seen enough of the world to recognize pretense when she saw it. "Sit down, both of you," Ruby said, settling into a worn leather chair that clearly belonged to her. "Now, Marcus, you know I didn't raise you to lie to me, even with good intentions." Marcus and Madison exchanged glances. "Grandma Ruby." "I hush." Ruby's voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded respect her entire life. "Madison, sweetie, you seem like a lovely young woman, but you're not in love with my grandson, and he's not in love with you. The question is, why are you here?" Madison felt tears prick her eyes. The weight of the past week, the confusion, the doubt, the uncomfortable realizations about her own assumptions came crashing down. "Because he loves you," Madison said quietly. "And because I'm starting to realize how much I don't understand about the world." Ruby nodded slowly. "That's the first honest thing anyone said in this room today." She turned to Marcus. "Boy, you've been trying to protect me from worry, but I've been worrying about you for years. Not about whether you'll find love. You've got too much heart. Not to, but about whether you'll find someone who sees you for who you are, not what you've had to overcome." Madison looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw something she'd missed before. The weight of constantly having to prove himself. The exhaustion that came from being exceptional just to be accepted as normal. "I think," Ruby continued, "that you've both learned something important today. Now, let's have some real conversation over dinner. And Madison, honey, I want to hear about your family. All of it." Over dinner, Ruby shared stories that shattered Madison's remaining preconceptions. She spoke of working as a domestic worker for wealthy families, of being treated as invisible while overhearing conversations about those people who needed to work harder. She talked about watching Marcus excel in school while being told by teachers that he was surprisingly articulate or a credit to his race. "I learned early that some folks see my skin before they see my soul," Ruby said gently. "But I also learned that the world is full of people who, once they get past their own fears and assumptions, are capable of beautiful friendships." Madison found herself crying not the polite tears of someone moved by a story, but the deep, shoulder-shaking sobs of someone whose entire worldview was reshaping itself. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, baby girl," Ruby said, moving to sit beside Madison on the couch. "You don't need to apologize for what you didn't know. You need to decide what you're going to do with what you know now." Marcus knelt in front of Madison, his expression gentle but serious. "You don't have to carry the weight of everything that's wrong with the world, Madison, but you do have to decide what kind of person you want to be moving forward." Madison looked up at him, seeing clearly for the first time, not a black man who had somehow transcended his circumstances, but a human being who had built something remarkable despite facing obstacles she'd never had to consider. "I want to be better," she said simply. "I want to use my privilege for something that matters." "Then that's where we start," Ruby said. "Not with guilt, not with grand gestures, but with the daily choice to see people as they are, not as you expect them to be." That evening, as Madison prepared to leave, Marcus walked her to the elevator. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for today, for listening, for being willing to have your assumptions challenged." "Thank you," Madison replied, "for trusting me with your grandmother. She's incredible." "She is. And Madison, you are too. You just needed to remember that being privileged doesn't mean being perfect, but it does mean being responsible. The following week, Madison found herself standing before the board of directors of the Sterling Family Foundation, her hands trembling slightly as she held her prepared remarks. The mahogany-paneled conference room felt suffocating, filled with people who had known her since childhood and expected her to maintain the family's traditional approach to philanthropy. I'm proposing a fundamental shift in our foundation's mission, Madison began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. Instead of funding programs that we think communities need, I want us to listen to what communities say they need. Her uncle Richard, the foundation's longtime chairman, frowned. Madison, we've always been very strategic about our giving. We can't just throw money at problems without proper oversight. I'm not suggesting we throw money at anything, Uncle Richard. I'm suggesting we acknowledge that the people closest to problems are often closest to solutions. And where is this coming from? Her mother asked, her tone carefully neutral. Madison took a deep breath from realizing that our assumptions about deserving and undeserving, about who works hard and who doesn't, about what barriers exist and what barriers don't, these assumptions are often wrong. The room fell silent. Madison could feel the weight of generations of family tradition pressing down on her, but she also felt the memory of Ruby's strength, of Marcus's quiet dignity, of the young man in the coffee shop who just needed someone to believe in him. I'm proposing we partner with organizations led by people from the communities we want to serve. I'm proposing we fund programs that address systemic issues, not just symptoms. And I'm proposing we do this because it's right, not because it makes us feel good about ourselves. Preston leaned forward. Madison, this sounds like you've been influenced by some very progressive ideologies. I've been influenced by meeting people whose experiences are different from mine, Madison replied firmly, and by realizing that our family's success doesn't make us experts on everyone else's struggles. The vote was close, but Madison's proposal passed. As the meeting ended, she felt something she'd never experienced before, the satisfaction of using her privilege to challenge the very system that had created it. 6 months later, Madison stood in the renovated community center in Seattle's Central District, watching Marcus teach a coding class to neighborhood teenagers. The Sterling Family Foundation had funded the program, but more importantly, they'd done it in partnership with local organizations who understood the community's needs. You see, Marcus was saying to Jerome, the boy from the coffee shop, the algorithm doesn't care about your background. It only cares about logic and creativity, and you've got both. Ruby sat nearby, her health having stabilized enough to allow her to visit occasionally. Despite her physical frailty, her spirit remained vibrant, and she'd become an unofficial grandmother to many of the kids in the program. You know, Ruby said to Madison, I've been thinking about what you said that first day about not understanding the world. The truth is, none of us understand the whole world. We just understand our piece of it. Madison nodded, watching the kids collaborate on their projects. Think I was so focused on my piece that I forgot there were other pieces. And now I'm learning that the world is bigger and more complicated than I thought, but also more beautiful. People are more resilient, more capable, more deserving of respect than I ever imagined. Marcus looked over from his teaching and smiled, not the polite smile of someone trying to make her comfortable, but the genuine smile of someone who had become a friend. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. As the class ended and the teenagers filed out, chattering excitedly about their projects, Madison felt a deep sense of peace. She wasn't perfect, would never be perfect, but she was growing. And in a world that often seemed divided by fear and assumption, growth felt like the most radical act of all. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and purpose.